The opening minutes of Lightyear write a check that the rest of the movie has to spend its entire time trying to cash. This is a movie that came out in 1995 that made kids everywhere fall in love with the character Buzz Lightyear. And that is the ultimate failing of this movie. We're going to talk about that, plus the other Buzz Lightyear movie this week on 30-Minute Reviews. Good morning and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. It is Sunday the 14th. And as part of, a presentation that happened in, I believe it was back in 2020, where they kind of announced their Disney Plus slate and what's going on there and all that stuff. They also announced Lightyear. I think it was an Investor Day thing. They announced Lightyear, which is a prequel movie about Buzz Lightyear, set to be, the movie that Andy watched that made everyone fall in love with it. And it became a bit of a pop culture hot potato. Because first off, they had recast who played, they had recast Buzz Lightyear. It was no longer Tim Allen. It was Chris Evans. And the thought process behind that was, and the belief was, well, Tim Allen's conservative, and, they want to eliminate him from this. They're canceling him and all that, which was not the case. It's just, as was the case with a lot of toys at the time, it was a different voice actor, or they just pulled directly from the movie with a lower quality sound drip. And it's just, that's just how it happened in the 90s. Also, I think to, modern audiences, Chris Evans is a bigger draw than Tim Allen in the year 2022. All of that said, we're not really, we're not going to get into the culture war aspects of it, because I feel the culture war aspects are not worth addressing, really, because it is all bad faith arguments. Like the idea that, this movie's just made to push in the gay agenda, which, tell me you don't know how movies are made without telling me you don't know how movies are made. Like the idea that, they did this entire thing to have that one scene where in the background two women have an affectionate kiss. Yeah, they did this entire movie for that. The thing about this, when I left it, I remember thinking, okay, this movie functionally fails at its core premise. And it's rare that a movie gives you its thesis in the opening. It's, and as explicitly as this is. You don't always get, the opening 30 seconds of the movie is going to explain to you exactly what you're watching. And they open it with, 30 years ago, Andy saw this movie in theaters, and it made him fall in love with Buzz Lightyear, therefore setting in motion the events of Toy Story, and the related movies down the line. And okay, that's fine. I get what you're going for with that, and that's that is an interesting thing. Now, we had done this once before, or at least I haven't been able to find Buzz Lightyear of Star Command the movie. I don't think it's on Disney Plus. It has not been re-released since its original VHS and theatrical run, VHS and DVD run back in the early 2000s. So if you want to watch this, you kind of have to go and seek out at a thrift store a VHS, assuming you still have a VHS player. But Buzz Lightyear Star Command is a movie that is it is a feature-length launch of the TV show on I think it was on Disney XD, or was it on Disney Channel proper? It ran for 2 or 3 years, and it was just the adventures of Buzz in space with the rest of the team at Star Command. And it's a very, that movie does a better job of showing why kids would like Buzz Lightyear. And I think that it is kind of the telling thing that, like, the big issue this movie has is that it does not feel like a movie that kids in 1995 would have gelled with. It doesn't feel like a 1995 movie. And that's kind of the big disappointment of all of this, is that you have so much of the design work already done. And I think you have to keep all that in mind when you're making this. Like, Zurg looks nothing like Zurg the toy. And I think part of it is, like, the designs here are not, are not that. Like, the designs here don't look like something that a kid would, want to play with, or sell a toy. The twist of, like, Zurg being Buzz from the future is not a 1995 kids movie concept. Like, the understanding of time travel that this movie uses is very much a post-Endgame modern physics look at time travel with multiverse theory and all of that. It's not, it's very different. And I think that that's kind of where this movie all falls apart, is it's like, inherently, if you're going to tell me in the opening minutes that this is a movie that came out in 1995, and it doesn't feel like that, because we've seen movies that came out in 1995. It doesn't feel like a movie in 1995 that would have made a kid make his entire personality around this, to the point that, like, it reshapes the entire dynamic of his room, because he was obsessed with Woody. Then he sees this movie, and then he gets the Buzz toy, and the Buzz toy is all of a sudden the best thing in his life. It is a shame that they missed the mark by that much, and that's kind of the thing that harms the entire enjoyment of it. Which is why it's like, I think I said it was a 2 then, and I would say it's probably still a 2 now. There's nothing here that makes me feel like this is anything more than a corporate mandate to sell more toys. And even the things like the dialogue doesn't feel authentic, like, to the way Buzz is portrayed in 1995. The dialogue that he's using, like, there are minimal references to the dialogue. Like, you have a few things, like, what are the things that he says when he pushes the buttons? Those are the things that need to be said in this movie. Like, those lines need to make it into this movie. Very simple. The idea, and the thing is too, it's like, when we get the sequence of, where was I going with that? Oh, the sequence where we get, like, kind of like one of the big lines, it's a secret mission in uncharted space. Like, I don't think that's in the movie, in Lightyear. And that is a line from a pivotal part of, Toy Story. It just doesn't make it into the final cut. It's just such a weird choice where it's like, why are you not like, you have basic framework of what this is supposed to be, where it's like the idea that, like, and the core of the movie is not bad. It's just, I think that where I kind of, and that's why I give it the 2, is that it's like, if this was a standalone science fiction movie from Pixar, where it's like, it's not Buzz Lightyear, it's an entirely new thing, and it's not openly telling you, this is the movie that Andy saw that fell in love with it. Because it's like, I watched this movie and I'm like, if I were 9 years old in 1995, and I wasn't, or 96, I was like 2 years old, if I saw that, this is not a character that I would have been like, I have to see this over and over again. The movie that we got back in 2000 was the movie that was that. And that's kind of the largest issue here, is that as a standalone science fiction, there's a lot of really interesting ideas. I love hey, he's really trying to save all these people by just constantly doing that. And that sequence where he goes, forward in time, and he's trying to make the jump, and it doesn't work. And then he comes back and everyone's aging around him and he's staying the same age. It's a really, really depressing sequence, and it's just so well handled. And it really is a shame that they just, the rest of the movie doesn't line up with that. Because that's what the movie, if this was something entirely different and it's not Buzz Lightyear, I feel like that sequence makes this movie, worth watching. And it's kind of the thing that, that it just doesn't line up with what the movie is allegedly supposed to be. I don't buy that a kid would watch this and be interested. And I think the proof of that is that kids now watch the movie and it wasn't interested. And I think that's the other thing, is that it's here's Socks. Here's this little robot. And Socks is adorable. Socks is great. But again, you mean to tell me that in a movie about toys, that come to life, that this little cat that talks and is funny and is the comic relief of the movie, that doesn't make an appearance. And the other thing I'm mildly curious about, and I think is kind of the proof that Lightyear didn't work, is that it's in the trailer for Toy Story 5, and we haven't seen Toy Story 5 yet, it comes out this week. In the trailer for Toy Story 5, we see that sequence with all the buzzes. The fact that we don't see any of the side characters is telling. The fact that we don't see any of the additional, any of the additional, Socks or anyone else is telling. And it's just kind of they just chalked it up that no one liked this, so we're not going to reference it at all. And it's one of those things where it's again, it's a movie about toys that come to life. Do you mean to tell me that Socks wouldn't be something that, would have been a bigger deal? That's the thing, is that it's again, keeping in mind this is a world in 1996. 1996, the toy of the year, that Christmas, was Tickle Me Elmo. The Elmo that you touch the stomach and it would go ha 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 ha, and then if you press it enough times it would start vibrating violently, like it was having a grand mal seizure, and then it would do that. You mean to tell me that that style toy, not tickling obviously because that wouldn't fit Socks, but you mean to tell me that a Socks toy in 1996 wouldn't have done gangbusters in sales? Come the fuck on. Even if the movie was shitty, that little cute cat would have gotten so much attention. It's just kind of a misread of what this franchise is. And again, if this was just a straight science fiction movie, it's fine. There's nothing aggressively bad about it. It is ultimately a forgettable. It's probably a 3. Maybe if I'm feeling generous on the day, a 4, because I really like that sequence with him, trying the different combinations and going out into deep space and coming back and everyone aging and just his steadfast commitment to trying to fix this. Instead of just making the new life on this planet, which is what everyone's trying to do, because he's trying to correct his own mistake. That is a fantastic character moment for this Buzz. And I think that, if this is a different character, if this movie is completely divorced from Toy Story, it's probably a 3 or a 4. Because it's meant to be in the continuity of Toy Story, that's what brings it down. We talk about how franchises make or break movies. The idea that, does this work within this confines that it's created? But you've put yourself in a box, and you're this is the box we have to work in. And then you seem kind of annoyed that you're working in the box. And then you have to do that. Now, the other thing that I will say is that if it turned out that this movie was not meant to be about Buzz Lightyear and then got retrofitted to be about Buzz Lightyear, I would not be shocked about that. Because again, this is 2020 it was announced, it came out in 2022. This is the beginning of the, a more corporate-mandated Disney. We're talking about the beginning of Bob Chapek's reign as CEO before Bob Iger came back. And I'm not saying Bob Iger was the savior or anything like that, but it felt more like, hey, these are things we're doing with the intent to, to make money. And it's like, this is something people like. We're doing a Buzz Lightyear prequel. This is in the same conversation where it's like, hey, look, we're doing a, what's it called? And look, COVID, closing the parks down fucked everything up. And the idea that, like, and that was, a big revenue thing, and it was a whole ordeal. And that was, why we ended up with this presentation in, like, late December of, like, hey, here's everything we're announcing that's coming soon. And that was one of the things where it was like, we got the announcement that Jonathan Majors is going to be playing Kang the Conqueror as the bad guy in Quantumania in the same presentation that they announced Lightyear. And I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. Like, and it kind of tells you everything you need to know. This conversation was about showing shareholders, hey, look, we have things coming that are going to make us money. Don't panic. This was nothing we've done here is a mistake. We have a plan. And that's what every decision about this feels like. And again, we come back to, was Lightyear always intended to be about Buzz Lightyear? I can't definitively say one way or the other. There's no evidence to suggest that it was intended to be something else. But the movie is divorced enough from the continuity established in Toy Story that if it turned out that was the case, I would not be shocked. But we'll wrap up there for today. Again, this is a 2 out of 5, mostly because of the franchise it exists within. It's a low point, and hopefully Toy Story 5 is better. Initial reviews seem to indicate that it is. But we will talk about that on Beware of Spoilers this week. Coming up, if you missed it, we talked about the first 2 episodes of X-Men 97 on Saturday in a spoiler-free discussion of them before the premiere. We went to the premiere at Tribeca. Over on the backlog file, we talked about a bunch of indie games we played at Tribeca, and we'll be talking about, what's it called? We'll be talking about, next week on this show, well, later this week we have Ant-Man. This week on this show we do have, or next week we have Superman and then Supergirl, the Helen Slater movie, which I've never watched before, and we'll watch it for the first time. So until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.
Before you go, I also write fiction. My newest novel, Succession Planning, is out on August 28th, available both in paperback and an ebook. It follows a journalism grad stuck managing a store while the owners wage a quiet war over who takes over the business. It's about ambition, inertia, and taking the easiest choice. The link is in the description. That's Succession Planning, out on August 28th.